Given I have made a guide to drafting a jacket with a side body, I thought it prudent just to add this on top of the main making guide. A little of this maybe just something that I'm doing rather than what is normal. For example, if you'd prefer to just press the dart open like normal, then go for it. Starting post-mark stitching, I have the internal details copied onto the wrong side of both pieces. The wedge of the belly dart has to be cut out so that the dart can be sewn closed. Starting with the top edge of the dart, I'm cutting along the chalk line carefully and closing my scissors on the very point that the belly dart hits the close side of the main dart. Not enough time to go over it now, but don't put your scissors past what you want to cut. Then cut the lower edge of the belly dart all the way across the bottom of the main dart. Closing the darts, I want the jacket right side up, and then I'm folding the underarm seam towards the front edge, across the center of the dart, pressing a crease in there. You could cut down the middle of most of the dart and press the whole thing open, but I prefer to use a piece of the same cloth to sew the dart against, which just makes it easier, especially at the tip. Right. I want the main dart pressed towards the front edge for no particular reason, so the extra piece of cloth is going on to the side with the underarm seam. I'm placing it a few centimeters above the bottom of the dart. I will cut the bottom few centimeters and spread it open so that it reduces the amount of cloth that I'm dealing with when I make the pocket. This stage is the last good opportunity to remove the dart mark stitches. Sewing the dart closed, starting at the lower side, it will be back tacked at the bottom. It can be a simple case of following the chalk, ensuring the other piece of cloth catches into the stitch. At the waistline, I try to curve the dart a bit more towards the fold than the straight line that's drawn on. Especially right at the end, the stitching should be just about on the edge of the cloth. The stitching can run off onto the piece of cloth underneath. First thing is cutting the piece of dart that doesn't have the extra little bit of cloth to press it open. Cut up the fold first, then you only need to cut the side with the extra cloth down to the stitching. Pressing the cloth to one side and the dart to the other. In my case, the dart is going towards the front. Closing the belly dart, it's probably best with the right side down. Maneuver the two sides of the belly dart together. You want the local area as flat as possible, distributing the shape elsewhere so that the iron can sit on the dart without disturbing the alignment of the cloth. The fusing only needs to be as long as the cut, but if you want it to cover the pocket end as well, that's your prerogative. The raw edges need to be touching without overlapping, and the fusing can go on and be pressed on for 10 seconds or so. You don't necessarily want the iron to be motionless during this time because it may leave an imprint of the iron plate on the cloth. The second side might be a better example just because it's been a moment since I've done a jacket with a belly dart. As ever, it's important that the dart is sufficiently pressed open and just out of neatness and aesthetic. Use steam and water. Allow the iron to dry it off and cement the creases in the seam, going without saying that the right side of the dart needs to be fully open. Trimming down the extra cloth, layering it, with the longer side being the one laying onto the forepart. Now the side bodies can go on. Get the appropriate side body for each front, and they go together right side to right side. It's just a seam. I like to use a pin just so that I only have to think about it once. I can go straight to the machine to sew the seams. I don't need to baste it before machining. I have balance marks that I can place the raw edge together as I send it through the machine. I'm starting both stitches under the armhole and back tacking. Obviously, we gave it a very apparent 1 cm seam allowance when changing the pattern to a side body. With the belly dart closed, the mark stitches denoting the hem should be even when you get there. Keeping the raw edges together, it can just be sewn off of the edge. No use back tacking. It shouldn't be tight if we cut it correctly, but this way it can open if it needs to, and some of it is liable to get cut down anyway. As is normal, the seam should be pressed as is to alleviate any tension that the machine may have put into it. The heat and steam relaxes the fabric a bit, I guess. Spreading the side body and front apart to press the seam open. Like all seams really, it needs to be pressed very well and cemented open. I start spraying it with water. Maybe a dauber would have been helpful for that. I'm keeping the side body flat and pushing all the shape into the forepart just to make the seam easy to press open on the large surface area of my ironing board. A sleeve board and or edge board would have been superior to press them open, made it more easy. At some point I realized as well that the iron isn't actually on here. And just to say, when you want a patch pocket or something other than a welted pocket, the belly dart needs to be lowered 5 cm, so the main dart gets longer, but otherwise the belly dart just stays the same size, the wedge just gets lowered. When the first seam looks crisp, we can do the second, and that's basically it for preparing. But to clarify the pocket, I'm drawing the pocket line on using the belly dart as a guide and chalking through it to the front edge of the pocket that has been mark stitched, making a vertical line from the front edge of the pocket that's ideally in line with the warp of the cloth. This gives us a start point for the flap. For the pocket length, there are differing guidelines, opinions, and perspectives. Here, I just want it to be 16.5 centimeters because it's a larger jacket, but not huge, so slightly on the larger side. Really, it's at this point I should have cut the top edge of the sleecher so that the slant matches the pocket and it sits straight, but I do that when I make the pocket.